The champagne cork exploded across the rooftop terrace of the W Hotel in downtown Seattle. The sound ricocheted through the evening air like a gunshot, and for a moment, the crowd of tech professionals in their expensive casual wear went silent. Then came the cheers, the clinking of glasses, the congratulations that felt more like a coronation than a promotion announcement. I stood in the corner by the heat lamps, my hands wrapped around a glass of sparkling water, watching my husband Trevor accept handshakes and backslaps like he'd just won the lottery. In a way, he had. Chief Executive Officer. At 34. Of a company that had just closed a $50 million Series B funding round. Naomi! His voice cut through the crowd. He was gesturing for me to come over, his smile wide and bright under the string lights. I smoothed down my simple black dress and made my way through the crowd of people I didn't know. People who worked with my husband every day while I was home with our 3-year-old daughter. Trevor pulled me close when I reached him, but it felt performative. Like I was a prop in his success story. Everyone, this is my wife, Naomi. She's the one who keeps things running at home so I can focus on building this company. Keeps things running at home. As if I was the housekeeper. As if I hadn't given up my 6-figure career at Morgan Stanley to raise our daughter because he'd begged me to. As if I didn't have an MBA from Wharton. What did you do before? A young woman with pink streaks in her hair asked. She was drinking a craft cocktail that probably cost $20. Her badge said marketing director. Before I could answer, Trevor laughed. Naomi worked in finance for a bit, but honestly, being a mom is the hardest job there is, right, honey? He squeezed my shoulder. The kind of squeeze that said, don't contradict me. And now that I'm CEO, she definitely doesn't need to work. I can take care of everything. The pink-haired woman nodded politely and turned away to talk to someone more interesting, someone with a title, someone who mattered. I spent the rest of the evening being introduced as Trevor's wife or the CEO's wife or my personal favorite, Trevor's better half, though let's be honest, she got the easy job. That last one came from Trevor himself, drunk on champagne and power, his arm around the new chief operating officer, a woman named Sierra who looked like she'd walked off an Instagram filter. We got home at midnight. The babysitter was asleep on our couch. Some Netflix show paused on the TV. I paid her, sent her home in an Uber, and found Trevor in our bedroom, already in bed, scrolling through his phone. That was a good night, he said without looking up. Sierra's got some great ideas for expanding into the European market. We're going to need to travel more. Conference in London next month, maybe Barcelona in the spring. He meant him and Sierra. Trevor, I said carefully, taking off my earrings. When you introduce me at these things, could you maybe mention what I actually did before? I was a vice president at Morgan Stanley. I managed a $200 million portfolio. He finally looked up from his phone. Was. Past tense. Naomi, that was 5 years ago. You're a mom now. There's no shame in that. I'm not ashamed. I just don't want to be invisible. He sighed. The kind of sigh that said, I was being difficult. You're being sensitive. Everyone knows being a stay-at-home mom is important. I said that. What more do you want? Want me to get you a trophy? I turned away and went into the bathroom. In the mirror, I barely recognized myself. When had I become this woman? This quiet, smiling accessory to someone else's success story? The next morning, I made breakfast like always. Pancakes for Zara, our daughter, who covered hers in enough syrup to horrify a dentist. Coffee for Trevor, black, 2 sugars, in his favorite mug. I'd been up since 6. He stumbled down at 8:30, already on his phone. I'm going to be late tonight, he said, kissing the top of Zara's head but not looking at me. Board dinner. You know how it is. I did know. Board dinners had become a twice-weekly occurrence since his promotion 3 weeks ago. He'd also started going to the gym at 5 a.m., bought a new wardrobe of expensive casual wear, and spent Sunday afternoons at the office catching up on strategy. Trevor, I said, this Saturday is Zara's dance recital. You promised you'd be there. He looked up from his phone, confused, like I'd just spoken in another language. This Saturday? That's the company retreat. I told you about this weeks ago. You didn't. I did. You probably weren't listening. Look, Naomi, I'm the CEO now. That means I have responsibilities, real responsibilities. You can record it and I'll watch it later. real responsibilities, as opposed to my fake ones, like raising his child, like managing our household, like being his emotional support system for the past 7 years. Right, I said quietly. I'll record it. He grabbed his bag, his protein shake, his car keys. At the door, he turned back. Oh, and my mother's coming to stay for a few weeks. She'll be here Friday. I figured you wouldn't mind since you're home anyway. Then he was gone, and I was standing in our kitchen that overlooked Puget Sound, a kitchen in a house that cost $2.5 million, feeling like I'd been erased. Zara tugged on my sleeve. Mama, why does Daddy not want to see me dance? I knelt down and hugged her, breathing in the syrup-sweet smell of her hair. Daddy loves you, baby. He's just very busy right now. But as I said it, I wondered if that was true, or if Trevor had just become too busy for anything that didn't serve his ego. His mother arrived on Friday with 4 suitcases and an opinion about everything. Linda was a woman who believed suffering built character, which was ironic since she'd never worked a day in her life. Her husband, Trevor's father, had been a successful real estate developer who'd left her very comfortable when he passed 5 years ago. Naomi, dear, she said, walking through the house like she was inspecting it for dust. Trevor tells me you're still not working. Don't you think it's time? Zara's in preschool now. What do you do all day? I was loading her suitcases into the guest room. I manage the household, take care of Zara, handle all the scheduling, the budgeting, Oh, sweetie, that's not work, that's just life. Real work is what Trevor does. Building a company, making decisions. You should try it sometime. Otherwise, what's he keeping you around for? The question hung in the air like a threat. I set down the last suitcase and left the room without responding. In the kitchen, I gripped the counter and counted to 10, then 20, then 30. That night at dinner, Linda held court. Trevor had actually made it home, probably to play the good son. They talked about the company, about his strategy, about Sierra, the COO, and how impressed Linda was with her during their phone call earlier. You called Sierra? I asked. Trevor gave me her number, Linda said, cutting her chicken with precise movements. We had a lovely chat about the future of the company. She's so sharp, so driven. You know, Trevor, you're lucky to have such a competent partner. She meant Sierra, not me. Trevor nodded, missing or ignoring the insult. Sierra's great. Honestly, I don't know what I'd do without her. I put down my fork. I'm going to check on Zara. Our daughter was already asleep, her nightlight casting stars across her ceiling. I sat on the edge of her bed and watched her breathe, this perfect little human we'd made, and wondered when I'd become a ghost in my own life. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mrs. Carter, this is Janet Wu from Pacific Northwest Bank. We need to discuss some irregularities with your accounts. Please call me at your earliest convenience. This is urgent. I stared at the message. Irregularities? All our accounts were joint. I handled most of the household finances while Trevor dealt with the big picture investments. What irregularities could there be? I called the number. It rang 3 times before a woman's voice answered. Janet Wu speaking. This is Naomi Carter. You sent me a text about irregularities? Mrs. Carter, thank you for calling. I apologize for the late hour. But this couldn't wait. I'm showing several large transfers from your joint accounts over the past month. Did you authorize these? My stomach dropped. What transfers? $75,000 to a personal account in your husband's name only. $50,000 to the same account. Another $60,000 just yesterday. The joint accounts now have a combined balance of approximately $12,000. I stood up so fast I felt dizzy. That's not possible. We had over $300,000 in those accounts. I'm sorry, Mrs. Carter. I'm looking at the transactions right now, all authorized with Mr. Carter's credentials. Since they're joint accounts, he has full access. I'm only calling because the amounts triggered our fraud alert system, and when I looked into it, I saw your name on the accounts as well. I wanted to make sure you were aware. I thanked her and ended the call. Then I sat back down on Zara's bed because my legs wouldn't hold me anymore. Trevor had drained our accounts. Our emergency fund, the money we'd saved for Zara's education. My inheritance from my grandmother that I'd put in the joint account because we were married and that's what you did when you trusted someone. He'd taken everything and moved it somewhere I couldn't access it. I didn't confront him that night. Or the next day. I smiled through breakfast, through Linda's commentary on how I'd let myself go since the wedding, through Trevor's announcement that he'd be in San Francisco all week for investor meetings. "Sierra's coming too," he added. "We need to present a united front." A united front. Him and Sierra, not him and me. After he left for the airport, I went into his office. The door was usually locked, but in his rush, he'd forgotten. I opened his laptop. The password was Zara's birthday. At least he still remembered that. I found the account statements easily. He'd opened a personal account and moved $290,000 into it. There were also charges I didn't recognize. A $5,000 dinner at Canlis. Another $3,000 at John Hightower, a high-end men's clothier. Jewelry purchases at Tiffany's for amounts that made my vision blur. I'd never received jewelry from Tiffany's. There were emails, too. Dozens of them. Between Trevor and Sierra, they started professional enough. Strategy discussions, market analyses. But by the third week after his promotion, they'd shifted. "Can't wait for London. Finally get you alone without distractions." That was Trevor. "Your wife won't mind?" Sierra. "Naomi doesn't even notice when I'm gone. She's too busy with mommy stuff. You're the one who gets me. You're the one who sees my vision." I closed the laptop before I threw it through the window. That afternoon, I made a call to a number I hadn't dialed in 5 years. It rang once before a familiar voice answered. "Naomi Chen. I was wondering when I'd hear from you." Marcus Okoye had been my boss at Morgan Stanley, the man who'd taught me everything about high-stakes investing, the man who'd told me I had the instincts of a killer and the patience of a saint, a combination that made for excellent money management. "Marcus, I need your help. After you ghosted me for 5 years, you wound me. I thought you'd forgotten all about your favorite mentor. I got married, had a baby. You know how it is. I know how it is for people who forget who they are," he said, but his voice was gentle. "What do you need, Naomi?" I told him everything. The promotion, the humiliation, the money, the affair. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "So he thinks you're just a housewife now?" Marcus finally said. "He forgot what you are?" "I almost forgot what I am." "Then let me remind you. You're Naomi Chen, the woman who turned 2 million into 20 million in 18 months. You're the analyst who predicted the tech crash of 2019 and saved our clients billions. You're the youngest VP in the company's history. You're a killer, Naomi. You just took a vacation. Question is your vacation over?" I looked around Trevor's office, at his ego wall covered in photos of him with tech celebrities, with investors, with politicians. Not a single photo of me or Zara. "Yeah," I said. "My vacation's over." "Good. Then let's talk about what you really want here. Revenge? Or something better? What's better than revenge?" He laughed, that deep, knowing laugh I'd missed. "Justice, with profit, send me everything you have. And Naomi, welcome back." I spent the next 2 days going through everything. Bank statements, company documents. Trevor had been sloppy, probably because he thought I was too stupid or too distracted to notice. He'd left trails everywhere. Marcus called me back 48 hours later. "Okay, this is even better than I thought. Your husband's company, what's it called? Synergy Tech?" "Yeah." "Do you know who their Series B investors are?" "Some venture capital firm." Trevor mentioned them, but I wasn't really paying attention. That was a lie. I'd been paying attention. I always paid attention. But I'd learned that men like Trevor preferred women who seemed slightly confused by business talk. "The lead investor is Okoye Capital Partners." I sat down. "Your firm?" "My firm. Which I founded 3 years ago with money I made, in part, from investments you helped me structure before you left. Now here's the interesting part. I own 35% of Synergy Tech. The board has 5 members. I'm one of them. So here's my question. Does your husband know you used to work for me?" "I don't think he remembers where I worked. He just knows it was some finance job." Marcus laughed again. "Oh, Naomi, this is going to be fun. Send me a list of everything you want. Not just revenge, real goals. What does justice look like for you?" I thought about Zara's dance recital that Trevor was going to miss. About my grandmother's inheritance that Trevor had stolen. About 5 years of making myself smaller so he could feel bigger. "I want my daughter to be proud of her mother," I said. I want security that no one can take away, and I want him to know what it feels like to be invisible. Done. I'll be in Seattle next Thursday for the board meeting. Plan on being there. Marcus, I'm not on the board. Not yet. But sweetie, you're about to be. And Naomi? Wear something powerful. Something that reminds you who you are. The next few days were a blur. Trevor came back from San Francisco glowing with success. He barely looked at me, just dropped his suitcase in the bedroom and went straight to his office for calls. Linda spent her time redecorating our house and giving me advice I hadn't asked for about everything from my parenting to my appearance. You know, dear, she said on Tuesday while I was making dinner, Trevor's at a very important stage in his career. Men at his level, they need wives who are, she gestured vaguely at me, more polished. Have you thought about a personal trainer? Or maybe seeing someone about your wardrobe? I was wearing jeans and a t-shirt, the same thing I wore every day while raising a 3-year-old and managing a household. I'll think about it, I said, chopping vegetables with more force than necessary. And another thing, Sierra called earlier. She's such a lovely girl, so accomplished. Did you know she has a PhD? Trevor mentioned they'll be traveling together quite a bit. I think that's wonderful. He needs someone on his level to collaborate with. The knife stilled in my hand. She called here? Yes. Looking for Trevor. They had the loveliest conversation when he got home. She really understands him, you know. His vision, his passion. It's refreshing to see him with someone who speaks his language. Someone who speaks his language. As opposed to me, his wife of 7 years, the mother of his child, who apparently only spoke in mommy talk. I finished making dinner in silence while Linda talked about how impressed she was with Sierra's credentials, her ambition, her youth. Everything I wasn't anymore, in her eyes. That night, after Zara was asleep and Linda had retired to the guest room, I found Trevor in bed, laptop open, video chatting with Sierra. I could hear her laugh through the speakers. Hey, I said from the doorway. Can we talk? Kind of busy, babe. Big presentation tomorrow for the board. Sierra and I are going over the numbers. It's 11 p.m. Yeah, and? Success doesn't sleep, Naomi. This is what building a company looks like. If you'd ever had real ambition, you'd understand. I stepped into the room. On his screen, I could see Sierra in what looked like a hotel room, wearing a silk robe. Is she in Seattle? Yeah, she got in tonight. Staying at the Four Seasons. Why? Just curious why she couldn't go over numbers at the office. Trevor's jaw tightened. Because we work better without distractions. Look, if you're going to be jealous and insecure, can you do it somewhere else? Some of us have actual work to do. I left the room. Not because he told me to, but because I didn't trust what I might say or throw. Thursday morning arrived with rain, typical for Seattle in November. I woke up early, before Trevor, before Linda, before Zara. I showered and opened my closet to the section in the back, the part I hadn't touched in 5 years. My work clothes, my armor. I pulled out a charcoal gray Tom Ford suit that had cost me $3,000 when I bought it. It still fit perfectly. I added a silk blouse the color of fresh blood, Louboutin heels that added 4 inches to my 5'6" frame, and the Cartier watch I'd bought myself when I made VP. I did my makeup carefully. Not the soft, natural look I'd been wearing for years. This was war paint, sharp eyes, bold lips, the face of a woman who'd made men in boardrooms sweat. When I walked into the kitchen, Linda gasped. Naomi, where on earth are you going dressed like that? I have a meeting. A meeting? What kind of meeting? Trevor appeared, already dressed in his CEO uniform of expensive jeans and a blazer. He stopped when he saw me, confusion crossing his face. What's going on? Why are you dressed like that? I have a meeting, I repeated. What meeting? With who? The board of Synergy Tech. I was invited. Trevor laughed. Actually laughed. Invited by who? Honey, I know you're bored at home, but you can't just show up to my board meeting. That's not how it works. Now go change and I'll see you tonight. I picked up my bag, the same Hermes briefcase I'd carried to Morgan Stanley every day. I'll see you there. I kissed Zara goodbye, confirmed with the nanny that she'd be there by 8, and walked out the door. Behind me, I could hear Trevor telling his mother that I'd lost my mind and he'd deal with it later. The board meeting was at 10 a.m. at Synergy Tech's offices in South Lake Union. I arrived at 9:30, early enough to make an entrance but late enough that everyone else would already be there. The receptionist looked confused when I walked in. "Can I help you?" "Naomi Chen. I'm here for the board meeting." She checked her computer, frowned. "I don't see you on the list." "Check with Marcus Okoye. He invited me." She made a call, spoke quietly, then looked up at me with new eyes. "My apologies, Miss Chen. Conference room A, top floor. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Water?" "I'm fine, thank you." The elevator ride to the top floor felt like flying. Or falling. I wasn't sure which. When the doors opened, I could hear voices from the conference room. Trevor's, loud and confident. Sierra's, laughing at something he said. Others I didn't recognize. I walked in. The room went quiet. There were 6 people seated around a long table. Trevor at the head, looking like a king in his castle. Sierra to his right, wearing a dress that probably cost more than most people's mortgage. 3 men in suits I didn't know. And at the far end, Marcus Okoye, looking exactly as I remembered. Imposing, brilliant, and barely containing a smile. "What the hell?" Trevor stood up. "Naomi, what are you doing here? This is a private board meeting. You can't just—" "Sit down, Trevor." Marcus's voice cut through the room like a knife. "Naomi is here at my invitation. As the lead investor in your company, I have the right to invite observers to board meetings. And Naomi is far more than an observer." Trevor looked between us, confusion turning to something uglier. "You know each other? Know each other?" Marcus smiled. "Trevor, do you know what your wife did before she married you? She worked in finance or something. It doesn't matter. She was the youngest vice president in Morgan Stanley's history. She managed the accounts that made me rich enough to start my own investment firm. Every dollar I invested in your company, Trevor, came from money that Naomi helped me make. So yes, I know her. The question is, do you?" Trevor's face had gone white. Sierra was looking at me like she was seeing me for the first time. The other board members were watching this unfold with the fascination of people witnessing a car crash. "Now then," Marcus continued, "shall we begin? I've called this meeting to discuss some concerns about Synergy Tech's leadership and direction. Please, everyone, sit." I took a seat next to Marcus, directly across from Trevor. This close, I could see the panic in his eyes. The realization that something was happening that he didn't understand and couldn't control. Marcus opened a folder. "Gentlemen and Sierra, I've been reviewing Synergy Tech's financials over the past quarter, and I have some concerns. Trevor, can you explain why you've been charging personal expenses to the company credit card? I'm seeing dinners, clothing, jewelry, all marked as business expenses, but with no clear business purpose." Trevor cleared his throat. "Those were client entertainment expenses, team building, that sort of thing." "Were they?" Marcus slid a paper across the table. "Because this $5,000 dinner at Canlis was on a Tuesday night. According to the reservation, it was for 2 people. You and Sierra. None of our clients were present. So how exactly was this business entertainment?" Sierra shifted uncomfortably. Trevor's jaw clenched. "And this jewelry from Tiffany's," Marcus continued. $15,000. The receipt shows a necklace. For Sierra. How is that a business expense?" "It was a thank you," Trevor said, his voice tight, "for her hard work on the Series B raise." "A $15,000 thank you," Marcus said flatly. "Trevor, you do realize that misusing company funds is not only a breach of fiduciary duty but potentially criminal fraud?" One of the other board members, an older man with silver hair, spoke up. "Marcus, are you saying—" "I'm saying we need new leadership. Effective immediately, I'm calling for a vote to remove Trevor Carter as CEO of Synergy Tech and install interim management until we can conduct a proper search for his replacement." The room exploded. Trevor was on his feet, shouting about loyalty and vision and everything he'd built. Sierra was trying to defend him, talking about their strategy and their plans. The other board members were asking questions, demanding clarification. Through it all, I sat quietly, watching Trevor realize that the power he'd thought was his had never really been his at all. Watching Sierra understand that her alliance with the CEO meant nothing when the CEO had no power. Watching it all crumble. The vote was 4-1. Only Sierra voted to keep Trevor as CEO. She had been given a board seat as part of her compensation package. It didn't matter. The rest of the board, led by Marcus, voted him out. Trevor looked at me across the table, and for the first time in years, he really saw me. "You did this," he said, his voice hollow. "You set this up." "No," I said quietly. "You did this." I just stopped pretending not to notice. Marcus stood. "Trevor, you have until end of business tomorrow to clean out your office. Sierra, given your involvement in Trevor's misappropriation of funds, we're terminating your employment as well. HR will be in touch regarding the terms." "You can't do this." Sierra was on her feet now, her face flushed. "We've done nothing wrong. Trevor built this company." "Trevor built a company with investors' money," Marcus said. "My money." And he seemed to forget that investors expect a return, not a personal piggy bank for his mistress. The word hung in the air. Mistress. Sierra's face went from red to white. Trevor looked like he might be sick. "Meeting adjourned," Marcus said. "Naomi?" "A word?" The others filed out, Trevor and Sierra last, both of them looking shell-shocked. When we were alone, Marcus turned to me. "How do you feel?" I thought about it, tried to find satisfaction or triumph or vindication, but all I felt was tired, like I want to go home and hug my daughter. "That's because you're not like them," Marcus said. "They're motivated by ego. You're motivated by love. But Naomi, don't mistake kindness for weakness. You just took down a man who thought he was untouchable. That's power. What happens now? Now we find a real CEO. Someone with actual leadership skills and ethics. The company will survive, might even thrive without Trevor's ego driving every decision. As for you," he pulled out another folder. "I did some digging on your financial situation. Your husband moved your joint savings into a personal account. That's called economic abuse, and it's grounds for divorce with a very favorable settlement." He handed me a business card. "This is Diane Reeves, best divorce attorney in Seattle. She's expecting your call. And Naomi, the inheritance from your grandmother that Trevor took? I can help you recover that plus damages. He's about to learn that stealing from you was the most expensive mistake of his life." I took the card, holding it like a lifeline. "Why are you helping me?" "Because 5 years ago, you were the smartest person I'd ever worked with, and watching you sacrifice that for a man who couldn't see your worth broke my heart. Consider this an investment in the person I know you still are." He smiled. "Plus, I need a new chief investment officer for Okoye Capital. Interested?" I thought about Linda at my house, redecorating my life. About Trevor and Sierra, probably calling lawyers right now. About Zara, who needed to see her mother as more than a ghost. "Yes," I said. "I'm interested." I got home at 2 p.m. Linda was in the living room, on the phone with someone, probably hearing about the board meeting from Trevor. She hung up when she saw me. "What did you do?" she demanded. "Trevor just called me. He's been fired. Fired from his own company. He says you had something to do with it." "His own company?" I set down my bag. "Linda, Trevor was an employee. A well-paid employee, but an employee. The company belongs to its investors, and when an employee steals from the company, he gets fired. That's how it works." "Steals?" "Trevor didn't steal anything. He's the CEO." He was the CEO, and yes, he stole. $15,000 in jewelry for his girlfriend, charged to the company card. "Want me to go on?" Linda's face cycled through emotions. Shock, denial, anger. "That's a lie. Trevor wouldn't." "Her name is Sierra. She's 28. PhD from Stanford. Very impressed with herself. They've been having an affair for at least a month, probably longer. He took her to San Francisco last week. 5-star hotels. Charged it all to the company." "You're lying," Linda said, but her voice had lost its conviction. "I'm not. And here's what's going to happen. You're going to pack your bags and leave my house. Today. Because this is my house, Linda. I bought it before I married Trevor with my own money. My name is on the deed. And I want you out," Trevor said. Trevor lied. About a lot of things. Now pack. She did, though not without a stream of insults and accusations that I let roll off like water. By 4 p.m., she was in an Uber to a hotel, and I was alone in my house with my daughter. Zara looked up at me from her coloring book. Grandma's mad. Grandma's going home, I said, kneeling down next to her. Baby, how would you feel if Mama started working again, if you went to school full-time and I had a job? She thought about it seriously, the way 3-year-olds do when they're asked real questions. Would you be happy? The question hit me in the chest. Yeah, baby. I think I would. Then yes. I want you to be happy, Mama. I held her close, breathing in her shampoo-scented hair, and let myself cry for the first time in weeks. Not sad tears. Something else. Relief, maybe. Or release. Trevor came home at 7. I heard his car in the driveway, the slam of his door. He walked in and found me in the kitchen, making Zara's dinner. We need to talk, he said. We do. But first, I need you to pack a bag. You're not staying here tonight. He laughed, that dismissive sound I'd grown to hate. Not staying here? Naomi, this is my house. You don't get to kick me out. It's not your house. It's mine. I bought it in 2018 with my bonus from Morgan Stanley. You moved in after we got married. Your name's not on the deed. Check if you don't believe me. Now pack a bag or I'll call the police and have you removed for trespassing. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious in my life. You stole from me, Trevor. You drained our joint accounts. You humiliated me. You had an affair. And you did it all while telling yourself I was too stupid to notice. So yes, I'm serious. Get out of my house. He stood there, trying to find the angle, the leverage, the thing he could say that would put him back in control. But there was nothing. For the first time in our marriage, maybe in his life, Trevor had no power. Fine, he finally said. But this isn't over. I'll fight you for everything. The house, custody of Zara, your money. My money? I laughed, a sound with no humor in it. Trevor, you have no money. The account you moved our savings into? I had it frozen this afternoon. Economic abuse is a crime. The $290,000 you stole is back in our joint account, which I'll be emptying tomorrow into an account with just my name on it. As for custody, feel free to try. I've been Zara's primary caregiver for 3 years. You didn't even know when her dance recital was. Good luck with that. His face went through a series of expressions, landing on something close to desperation. Naomi, come on. We can work this out. I made mistakes, okay? I got caught up in the success, the pressure. But we're a team. We've always been a team. We stopped being a team the day you told everyone I was just a housewife. We stopped being a team when you started sleeping with Sierra. We stopped being a team when you stole from me. We're not teammates, Trevor. We're not even friends. We're just two people who made a mistake 7 years ago, and now we're fixing it. He left, not right away. He tried a few more tactics. Anger, bargaining, playing victim. But eventually, he packed a bag and left, probably to Sierra's hotel room, though I doubted she'd be thrilled to see him now that he was unemployed and broke. I called Diane Reeves, the divorce attorney Marcus had recommended. She answered on the second ring. Naomi Chen? Yes. I need to file for divorce. I've been expecting your call. Marcus filled me in. I've got a preliminary filing ready to go. Can you come by tomorrow morning, 9 a.m.? I'll be there. Good. Naomi, I need to tell you something. Your husband is going to try to destroy you in this divorce. Men like him always do. They can't accept that they lost to someone they viewed as weak. Are you prepared for that? I thought about the past 5 years. About making myself smaller. About swallowing insults. About being invisible while he shined. I'm prepared, I said. Bring it on. The divorce took 6 months. Trevor fought everything. Just like I knew he would. He claimed I'd sabotaged his career, that I'd seduced Marcus into betraying him, that I was an unfit mother who'd neglected Zara during my corporate ambitions. It didn't work. The court awarded me full custody, though Trevor got supervised visitation every other weekend. I kept the house, my inheritance, and half of what was left in our joint accounts after I'd recovered what he'd stolen. Trevor was ordered to pay child support based on his new salary at a mid-level tech company where he'd managed to get hired as a director, not CEO, not even VP, director, making about a quarter of what he'd made at Synergy Tech. Sierra stopped returning his calls after the first month. Last I heard, she'd moved to New York and was working at a startup there. No PhD worth $15,000 necklaces, apparently. As for me, I started at Okoye Capital as Chief Investment Officer. My first day, Marcus gave me an office with a view of Elliott Bay and told me I had $1 billion under management. "Don't make me regret this," he said. "I won't." And I didn't. In my first year, I generated returns of 32%, outperforming every hedge fund on the West Coast. In my second year, Marcus made me partner. By year 3, our fund had grown to $3 billion, and I was being invited to speak at conferences, to write articles, to mentor young women in finance. Zara is 6 now. She goes to a great school, takes dance classes 3 times a week, and tells everyone her mama is a boss. When she's with me, she sees a woman who works hard, who's respected, who's powerful. When she's with Trevor, she sees a man who's still trying to explain why he's not the CEO anymore. I ran into Linda once, at a coffee shop in Bellevue. She pretended not to see me, but I walked right up to her. "How's Trevor?" I asked. She stiffened. "He's fine. Thriving, actually." "I'm glad to hear it. I really am. I never wanted him to suffer. I just wanted him to see me." She looked at me then, really looked at me. "He says you destroyed him." "No," I said gently. "I just stopped letting him destroy me. There's a difference." I walked away, back to my car, back to my life. That night, I put Zara to bed and stood in her doorway watching her sleep. This little girl who would grow up knowing her worth, who would never make herself small for anyone. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Board meeting tomorrow. Big news. Be ready." I smiled. 5 years ago, I would have asked what the news was. Anxious and uncertain. Now I knew I'd find out when I needed to. And whatever it was, I could handle it. Because I wasn't the woman who'd stood in that kitchen anymore, invisible and erased. I was Naomi Chen, investor, mother, survivor, and I was done being anyone's better half. I was whole, all by myself.